Good morning, good morning. Okay, this is the Cajun Craze. So the path of travel that you see on here is the one that you laid out for me a little bit ago. The first thing we're going to do as a process, and we're going to do this both on paper right now and when we're actually out on the grinder working patterns, is we're going to walk the course. First thing we need to understand is where the course goes. So let's do that. Here's the entry. Now, in a case like this, because I didn't attach any other required patterns for us to get through before we entered the Cajun Craze, I don't know what the path of travel would be coming in here, and that would dictate a few little minor adjustments if we're coming in from the right, or if we're dropping in from the left, or just straight through. In any case, we'll just take this as it's a straight through because that's all we have to work with today. Now, goes up through here. We're in this long, big box here. We turn around. After we turn around, we have to make a circle here. So this, again, figure 8, as you can see, figure 8 here. Then we come out of here, U-turn, and drag race out. So that's the first thing. Where the heck are we going? Second thing is, okay, what cones here are the important ones? So I had you do that, and you definitely did a good job. You identified some specific cones. When we enter in, these two, obvious, fantastic, those are important. Now we're going to come through this chute, and we're going to make a left-hand turn into this box. These two are very important. This one, not as much, but definitely important, and we're going to cover that here in a second, why that's pretty much as important. Once we come through here, one of the nice advantages with this particular pattern, they have not put a center cone here. So what does that mean? That means I'm not going to have to use all of this, and we're going to cheat this pretty good. Now, after we come through here, you've identified this cone obviously dropping in, but now that we fit through this chute, I would argue that now that we're coming through, yes, this cone matters coming this direction, but now these ones matter as we go through this chute as well, because we're only going to have a limited amount of space and we're making a right-hand turn. So depending on how we do that, and we'll talk more about that in a second. Now that we come through here, our turn cone here, for sure, you've dropped in a little deep, which is excellent, and argue that these are as important, or maybe this one you're pointing out as when you're coming through here, is it important? I would say you don't really even need to say that this, to me, this cone wouldn't matter. And because this is so deep, I'm not really going to worry about this cone either. So I would say this cone doesn't matter either. For this purpose, for the purposes of this whole box, this whole length that they've articulated, that's what I have to make my U-turn. So this is a pretty large box. So for me, the only things that really do matter, this one here you've identified, absolutely. This one here, possibly. If I'm sloppy, that one's gonna matter. But I would say we're better than that. This one doesn't matter, that one doesn't matter, that one doesn't matter. But these do. And then everything else, I think we're good. So dropping into this pattern, let's just pretend, for the sake of argument, that this is just a straight into this pattern. It's kind of a standalone on a grid. And a lot of competitions will have that, where you'll just have 5 or 6 patterns and they'll connect them up. Not really with cones, but they'll just lay them out and say, okay, knock this pattern, then you jump to this one, then this one, and you're going to just connect the 2 patterns up with a straight line. Let's just say that's what we have here. So we're dropping in here as a straight line. Now I'm going to be making a left. So if you remember my paths of travel and all these things, I want to start making my turning movement early. So your turning movement, if you look, arguably starts about here. For me, I'm going to, as I come into this, I'm going to start moving down here. So the way they have the cone set up, because it's not a straight line like it is on these edges, I'm going to start pushing out here. And I'm going to cheat this a little bit. And I'm going to move in somewhere like that. So my turning movement, I'm going to start moving out here and actually start my turning movement over here. Why? Because I can. Am I going to hit these cones? If they were there, sure would, but guess what? They're not, so it doesn't matter. So I'm going to push out here and take advantage of this whole section that they didn't articulate with cones, so I'm not going to hit anything. Now that I've swung out here, Again, I'm leaned over here, so I'm not worried about getting close to this cone because, yes, my front wheel, I say steer to the outside cone. I can steer close to this, but that's fine. As long as my front tire doesn't hit the base of that cone, which it's not going to, I can get close. My bags are fine, everything's fine. And I've done a couple things. One, I started my turning movement back here, which is going to really help me get into this pattern. I've pushed close to this cone. So now when I come through here, this cone's not going to be an issue because I have plenty of room. My line, if you look at it, I'm coming in. Look how far to the right I'm in. I'm way over right. And I'm able to do that because I'm so leaned over. So your line is a little bit more linear and you're starting your turning movement here. I say no. We start our turning movement down here because we can bow out and cheat these. Now we're going to drop into this pattern. Well, here's the nice thing. I can just, as long as I can get this thing turned around, I'm fine. So really, now that I really look at this thing, I'm probably going to want to actually push out here and try and get my turning movement done quick. And the reason I'm going to try to do this quick is, so now that I've got a lean angle, I'm going to push way out here. And again, steer to these cones here. I'm going to steer to these cones over here and get very close to them and get this thing turned around as quickly as I can. All I have to do to get out of this box is clear this cone here. And that's a lot of room to clear that cone. And the nice thing too is, as long as I clear this cone, look how much room I have to get myself situated for the next portion of the figure eight. I have plenty of room. So this is not a technical pattern. This is going to be a fast pattern. So I'm bowed out, push up high, knock out my U-turn quick. As long as I don't hit this cone, I'm just going to drag race over to this section of the pattern. Now, because we have to get through this chute, that's something that's in my mind. That tells me I have to, unlike this pattern, I have to get all the way over. So let's just say, for sake of argument, there were cones here. If there were cones over here, I would have to push way out here to get into this chute, right? And that's what it's showing in the arrows, but there is no cone telling me I have to do that. Over here, there is a set of cones telling me I have to do that. So this is going to be different for me than this one. This one, boom, in and out, fast as I can, and no risk getting out of this quick because I don't have to get into a tight chute or anything. I have all this run room from here to here to get situated for this box. Okay, so I'm just gonna blast through here, knock out a U-turn, make sure I don't hit this cone. So I go high enough up here so that I can execute that U-turn and not hit this cone. That's the goal. We don't want to push ourselves down here because now we're making a U-turn and now we have to either push back here to get around this cone or we risk hitting it and it's just slower. Boom, knock it out here. I'm over here. Now I know I have to go through this chute. So for me, I don't need to go way out here. If I went way out here, I could knock out my U-turn and probably get back this right here. But I have to go all the way over here. So for me, I'm just going to finish my U-turn in this box. I'm just going to drop down here and knock it out. I don't want to use all this space. All this is wasted space and wasted time. And all I have to do, I know I have to get through this chute right here, right? So I'm just going to drop through here. And if you look, it's a figure eight, but it's at an angle and it's a third of the pattern. Much, much faster. So all I have to do, drop it into this one, I have two cones that matter for me. This one, to make sure I clear it when I come through here, and this one, to make sure I clear it when I drop down here, because I'm going to cheat this as much as I can. Why? Because the distance from here all the way to here is huge, especially when I'm already at a turning angle coming into this pattern. So as long as I'm going to miss that, and I'm leaning right, so I'm going to have to push a little bit away from that, because everything's going to be wanting me to hit this cone. Unlike here, when I'm turning left, and now I can get really, really close because my bags are already dropped over away from it. Now I'm leaning into it, so I need to push out away from it just a little bit. That's why I'm not right up on it like you saw when I was coming in. So now I'm through here. I'm just going to fall in nice and smooth. And again in here, these cones I want to get close to. Why? Because I'm leaned into this cone because I'm making a right-hand turn. So I'm going to be pushing out somewhere around here, But I don't have to get up here. I just have to get over here now. This is my destination. So I'm going to swing through here, push out a little bit, and get close to that cone. And then this here, nice smooth drag race over to this cone. I'm not worried about this cone or this cone. I'm coming from here. So my turning movement is right here. So from here all the way over to, say, here, I'm basically leaned over right. Once I get here, and I've been drag racing, I'm pushing hard here. I'm just gonna get on the brakes nice and smooth. This will be nothing complicated because I'm just making a U-turn and going back. So it's gonna be a quick U-turn. I'm gonna come through here. I'm not gonna drop down here because I don't need to. That is important when you're gonna say, like, let's say I was making a U-turn here and now I had to go up this direction. In a case like that, I need to set up to be able to make that down here. I need to set up so I have room to put myself on the inside to be able to make my right. But in this case, I'm just drag racing out. So it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna come straight at it, knock out as tight a U-turn as I can, understanding that I'm leaning into this cone, so I don't wanna hit it. But I'm just gonna blast through here. I'm on the brakes somewhere around here. As I'm on the brakes, I'm leaning over, turning the bike, and once I'm here, I'm drag racing out. And a lot of these, we've talked about me sort of shuffling left or shuffling right. I'm not gonna need to worry about any of that because I'm not setting up for anything other than blasting out of this pattern. Now, if we had something else set up, if we had, you know, a 90-degree right box or something, well, then you'd see at the end of this thing, I would drop down, I would move my line up here to drop down here to go through there. So you'd see something more like that in order to make that 90 right. But in this case, I'm just going straight out of this thing. So I'm just gonna drag race out. I think that answers it. So just to summarize your lines, we're wasting way more space than we need to here. We're wasting way more space than we need to here. You need to think about, where am I gonna go? I'm going here. So why am I way out here? We don't need to be out here. And I'm just making a U-turn here and drag racing out. I don't need to create all this space, because take a look at this. You've dropped down here to get yourself here. Normally, like I said, that would be good if, say, we were gonna make a right-hand turn up, but we have all this space, all this usable space. I don't need to drop down here to execute this U-turn. I can just do it right here. Boom, nice and quick and tight, and still stay in the middle of the pattern. All right.